Hey guys, I'm Ethan here with Squealing Reels. Those of you who keep up with me on social media know that I made my first boat purchase, so it's all kind of new for me. I ended up picking up it's a Crestliner 2070 Retriever. It's got a 90 horse Merc 4-stroke on it. So I just got the boat and real anxious to go ahead and get all this stuff put on it right out of the gate as soon as I bought the boat back in December. But I'd done some reading online and people made some recommendations. They said take the boat out a couple times, find out what you really need, what you need to invest in, and then from those experiences on those first couple trips, then go buy what you presume that you need from that point. A lot of people go rush right into the store and they just start buying all this stuff for a boat, and then come to find out a lot of stuff they may or may not even use. So we ended up with a little more than I expected. We'll go ahead and start off here. I ended up, Justin Connor actually, shout out to you, bub, you and your wife, they're a catfish duo, had actually used these rubberized mats. These are diamond plate rubber mats from Harbor Freight. He uses these on his Sea Arc, so I figured if they're good enough for a real professional, they should be good enough for a rookie. So got some of these strips for the deck. And I also got some square strips here. Those are just for the main actual fishing deck. The bottom of the boat, I picked up several of these heavy-duty rubber drainage style interlocking mats. So they have these tabs here. We piece these together. I think I ended up purchasing 24 of these. So these will be in the floor of the boat to kind of deaden the sound, and also kind of like an anti-fatigue thing. It's kind of it wears on your joints standing in the bottom of a metal boat all day. So we got some of those. Obviously here and behind me we have the RS catfish net. I just actually purchased this not too long ago. Just got it in the boat. It is the actual catfish model in the orange with the telescopic handle. We have the rubberized orange mesh. Super easy on the fish's skin. Trying to cut down on the marks and the net burn, I think is what they refer to it as. Got the nice textured grip here. I actually purchased a cheapo cutting board so we don't have to cut on top of my brand new cooler. Shout out to Terry for that awesome Arctic cooler. Next here I picked up some of these. These are called, I do believe these are fisherman's caddies, I think is the brand name on these. These actually bolt on the 4-bolt pattern underneath your seat on your pedestal. These bolt up underneath your seat. They sandwich between the seat and the pedestal. And these are just cup holders, places for maybe your phone, for pliers, and they swivel with the seat. So we'll go ahead and do an install on those. I picked up a couple of extra rod holders that I'm going to mount to my my anchor locker, my milk crate. Shout out to Chris Wellington for welding up that awesome anchor for me. So we'll get these fastened on there. So I got some extra rod storage. I picked up a dip net. Had some issues getting some of them gizzard shad out of my live well, so we picked up this little dip net. We invested in us a Lindy, a drift sock, and we also got one of the buoy harnesses for our drift sock. A lot of times we're out, we'll set this spot lock, and even in some what I would consider very light current, our boat will still tack on us. So we got us a drift sock, and then last but not least, right here, obviously the big investment. I ended up getting the SOLIX 12, the G3. This is the down imaging, the side imaging, and the chirp sonar with the GPS chart plotter. Touchscreen, awesome unit. I've wanted a big finder for a long time. I actually have been running my kayak unit on this boat for a while, so I think it's time that we christen the boat with comparable electronics. So we're going to go ahead and get started on some of this stuff. You guys stay tuned.
Alright guys, real quick, we're going to do a real quick rundown of the boat here before I do any of these modifications. Up front we have the Minn Kota. It is the iPilot Tarova. I think it's 80 pound. We have a couple of seats up there. One problem I noticed right out of the gate, the first couple times I took the boat out, is when this metal flooring has any kind of moisture on it at all. When it's untextured like that, when it's just the plain metal, painted metal, there's no grip. Especially if there's any frost, it becomes an ice skating rink, so just watch out for that. Tons and tons and tons of open floor space in this boat. We have crazy floor space. This down here in the pan, the actual bottom of the boat, where we're going to install these rubber floor mats. Over there we have my makeshift anchor locker with the Wellington special anchor over there. We've got the helm, got some built-in rod lockers, got a couple of seats there. And then across the back, more open deck, the big 90 horse. For me, it's a big 90 horse. Another pedestal seat. And that's the boat here from the get-go. I mean, it's pretty much just a stock 2070 Retriever. But we're going to go ahead, I think we're going to start with these pedestal seats and go ahead and get those fisherman's caddies installed. They'll be pretty quick, pretty easy to get on there, and we'll move forward from there. Alright, so first things first, we'll go ahead and pop this pedestal seat up out of here. Real simple. This is kind of pretty much self-explanatory. We're going to go ahead and take these Phillips screws out from underneath of the pedestal. Super easy stuff. This is mainly just so I don't have to bend over on those pedestal seats and set my drink down on the deck. I can keep it right here next to me. So you're going to take these bolts out, and then we're going to lift our pedestal up. And I actually want this to be on the, let me see here. We'll put it off the, I don't know if it'll interfere with this knob or not. We'll have to see. I think it's going to. I may have to flip it here. So this lines up with your bolt pattern, obviously. And it's even got a cutout for telescopic pedestals there, so that's awesome. I'm not going to lie, I kind of had a thought of that when I was ordering this. I wondered if that was going to be a problem. You just line up your bolt patterns with the bottom, your holes in the seat. Get everything screwed back in there, and it's pretty straightforward stuff. But I have a feeling this is going to make a world of difference out on the water as far as keeping everything right at your fingertips. I recommend that you do this by hand, just for the simple fact that you don't want to strip out these inserts in these bottoms of these plastic seats. There's some kind of insert in there. I have a feeling if you really put some torque on it that she will twist loose. Real simple installation on these. Alright guys. And that there is the installation of our little fisherman's caddy. Pliers, phone, set all that stuff in there. Obviously with the motor trimmed up, you're going to want to be conscious of that, but even in this position I've still got the clearance, drinks, what have you. So that's the installation of the fisherman's caddy. Alright guys, next step we're going to go ahead and we're going to lay some of these some of the anti-fatigue drainage rubber floor mats. So we're going to have to clear up all of our floor space down here in the bottom of the pan of the boat. So go ahead and get the cooler and the rod locker up on the top deck, and we'll get stuff laid out and find out where we want these tiles to be. Alright guys, so now we're going to start on this lower deck here, the actual pan of the boat. These are just some safety care interlocking rubber mats. I picked up 24 of these. I think they come in sets of 6. You could buy them in a 2-pack of 12, and I bought 2 2-packs, so a total of 24 of these.
Might be a little bit overkill, but if so, I'm sure we can find a use for some of the extras. So we're gonna go ahead and get started laying these out and getting them in the deck of the boat. All right, so rubber decking here, real simple. Holes on the back side, tabs on the front side, just like a big jigsaw puzzle. You line everything up and then stuff should snap into place. There it goes, popping together. Shove that up, and we're just going to continue across here and work our way back, and then cut these as needed to fit. We'll get all these tabs together and get this covered up. So our decking here is coming together quite nicely. Coming to a couple pinch points here where we're going to have to do some trimming right around the console. I could probably just remove these rod holders, reposition them about an inch or two higher, but I could probably sneak the mats under if I did that. I really don't want to drill any more holes in my boat than I have to, so I'm just going to cut these mats to fit this this geometry here. I've already started around the back side, so we're just cutting sections to get this mat to lay where we want it. We were a little short on both sides, about an inch on either side of the actual decking itself, but this being as large of a mat as it is and as heavy as this rubber is, I think our coefficient of static friction is going to be sufficient to keep our mats from moving around. So we're going to get to trimming, get everything sized up, squared away, and we'll be back with you guys here in a few. All right, guys, so with a little bit of help of my brothers, Wiz the roofing shears, definitely recommend getting some shears. Don't try to do this with a carpet knife or anything like that, because it took forever. These things made for cutting, I guess, industrial grade rubber roof material. So awesome. But as you can see here, we got the tiles kind of mapped out. Just a word of advice: if you have a 2070 Retriever Crestliner boat, if you buy, they come in packs of 6. If you buy 4 packs, you get 24 of these tiles. You'll have 4 left over, but the 4 packs of 6 is enough to get the boat done in the entirety, at least the lower deck. I think the only place you'd really want to put these rubber mats, I think on the upper deck, they're going to need some adhesive to keep them from blowing out. But if you look here, we had to do really minimal trimming. I mean, these 5 tiles here lengthwise are pretty much uncut. Right here at the end on the back side, these had locking tabs similar to what we have over there, but they were coming off the back. We went along and trimmed all these locking tabs off, and the actual tiles, they're 16 by 16, fit beautifully in the floor of this boat. We went around and actually cut and ran tile underneath the console, and it comes all the way out the front here. So the entire deck of the boat is now slip resistant and anti-fatigue, and we're ready to put some big whisker girls and some toothy tugboats in the boat. All right, so we're done with the pan, what I refer to as the pan, the bottom of the boat here. I've got the rubberized mats in. Now our problem was to put something on the deck to give us a little bit of grip, add a little bit of friction up here. Usually frosty mornings, or if we've had dew or a little bit of rain, this metal, this untextured metal up here, it gets kind of slick, and I really don't want to make a unplanned trip into the water. So Justin and Tabitha from Catfish Duo, actually met them not so long ago on the water and got a chance to check out their Sea Arc. And one thing that they did that I kind of hijacked, I really like this idea, was Harbor Freight sells these, I guess they're typically used for like door jams or maybe inside edge of steps. But they're just textured rubberized mats. They come with adhesive already on the back there. They're kind of super tacky, so I don't think I'll have any issues with these peeling off or blowing off. I'll have to be careful if I pressure wash. I'll want to go make sure I'm not shooting any water underneath of these. But so we're just going to go ahead. We've laid out kind of a pattern here, kind of spread out to get as much surface area covered in the most likely footholds on this boat. So where I'm going to be stepping the most, mainly up there on the bow, on the edge, the gunnel up there,
on each of these doors, on these lockers, on the top of the live well, right here on the center step in between our seats here, and then also on the back side here. I'm actually going to mount some multi-bars on the back there, so I had to leave room for those, but I think I'm going to buy 2 more of the squares and place them here, and then 2 more strips under the seat, just so that way when my feet come off the pedestal, the first thing they're going to be on is some textured bottom there. So I'm going to go ahead and get the adhesive off these, get them permanently affixed to the deck, and we'll move on from there. Alright, we're going to go ahead and try to get this installation done on this SOLIX 12. I don't know if we'll have enough time to actually go through with it all the way, but we're going to see how much daylight we have left. So go ahead and open up my favorite part here. Oh goodness. I have ordered a RAM mount, but it is on a national back order. Oh my gosh, it's a television set. Ooh, and she is chonky. Man, she's heavy. Transducer and everything else is in the back here, but let's get a look. Man, that is heavy. They are very serious about these head units. Big rubber mat. Ooh, 12 inches of uncut, unadulterated touchscreen display. Ooh. We also got our buttons over here. We got a little joystick, got some touch buttons and some rotary dials, and I'm real happy with it. I ain't even turned it on. I'm excited. Oh my gosh, it's perfect. Look, you can see yourself in the screen maybe if I get the angle right.
You're too high.
Maybe.
Yep.
There you go. So we're gonna go ahead and get everything unboxed here. Let me put this back on, and we will put the head unit up here out of the way, as so that in my excitement, it don't knock it off and bust it. We have all the rest of the goodies. We have a mount, which I believe is not going to work with my current RAM mount. I've got a little RAM mount here for my Helix 7 that's been on this boat, and that's no way, shape, or form big enough to support the chonk that is this SOLIX unit. So, like I said, I've actually got a, it's a double joint 12-inch swing arm. It's their heavy duty for the SOLIX 12s and the 15s, and I think they even run them up for their Apex series, like the, God, I don't even know, like 15, 19-inch screens. I think Humminbird, the Apex, goes up that. So we've got a couple cables here. This right here is going to be our 3-in-1, the down imaging, side imaging, and the 2D sonar, the transducer there. So I do get the transducer in this particular package. Got some documentation, got us a big retractable mount, and then I do believe this is power cable, if I'm correct. Yes, we have power, and we got our locking bolts for the display there. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, try to get everything ready here, get this puppy on the boat. Alright, so we're just taking these screws out of the existing mounts we have here on the front of the boat. I'm going to reuse mine, so I recommend if you plan on reusing any of this to hang on to it. A lot of people don't know, RAM, they look like they're plastic because of the black coating, but they're actually aluminum, which I didn't know when I actually bought the thing. So very, very good mount. This just isn't the right size for what we're trying to do with the SOLIX. So we're going to set this aside over here real quick, and we're going to go ahead and work on finding our placement for our SOLIX unit. I'm thinking I want to do something kind of at an angle. Like I said, this installation is going to be more so on the temp side of things, for the simple fact that I do have a much better mate coming whenever they actually decide to bring it to me. So I'm going to go up underneath and I'm going to disconnect our power leads from our connection underneath. So we're going to disconnect from our 12 volt and then back this out this way because the nubbin keeps it from going back through the hole. So I'll go ahead and do that and then we'll be right back. And I'm going to start by cutting, let's cut our ground here. And I will have to strip that again. We don't want these to touch. We don't want this positive wire to get into anything. Ignition on the boat is off. Okay, so keep these two leads separated. And then we'll get some strippers under here, the wire stripping kind. And then we'll get our new power cable connected. Alright, so we're going to make sure not to cut our power cable. And this should feed, this is the helix. So there's the helix connector. So we'll go ahead and toss that up there on the deck with our trash. And then now this is our side imaging transducer off the back of the boat. So we're just going to unroute this cable, undo the zip ties, take it all the way to the back of the boat, and replace our old transducer with our new transducer. Alright, so we're just cutting some zip ties here along the back of the boat. Thankfully, these Crestliner boats, pretty open concept as far as our conduit, so it is super easy to run our sonar cables right to the back of the boat. So as you can see here, we're almost completely done with the uninstallation of the helix unit. We'll go ahead and remove our transducer here. We'll get our new SOLIX HD transducer mounted on there on our bracket, and we'll move forward from there. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and undo our transducer here. I'm thinking, looking at this, I'm thinking my mount has actually broke. I think it has. I think this is going to break coming out of there. Yeah, I broke my mount for my transducer. I'll be darned. Good thing I'm replacing it, huh? I know exactly when I did that. That was up at Belleville Pool with Adam and Dewey. We went up in a creek that was literally as wide as my boat was wide, and I tried to turn around like a genius. So I will not be repeating that trick with this new transducer, as it is like $400 to replace. So just backing these screws out, and my boat actually has a bracket, a plate, so I've got a place here to mount a transducer. It's out of the way. There's no there's trim tabs, or whatever these tabs here are. I don't know if they're necessarily labeled as trim tabs, but we don't have any obstructions. We have a good flat bottom underneath the boat. There's no ridges or rivets or welds or anything that's going to cause any kind of interference, bubbles with our transducer. So we'll go ahead and get the new transducer on here, get it lined up, get the bracket set up. I'm actually going to, when I get my new ram mount for the SOLIX unit, I'm going to buy a couple of the zip tie fasteners so we can actually run our transducer wire right against the transom here instead of just letting the cable hang over. For our purposes right now, the cable kind of hanging over the back isn't going to be that big of a deal.
but eventually it's something you are going to want to fasten down. I'm going to leave this screw in place here for the time being. It did have a zip tie on it that broke, just for the simple fact that I don't have any silicone on me, and I don't want to be forgetting about that and then having an open hole in the back of my boat. So, alright, so we're back here with the transducer now. We're going to go ahead and start mounting our first plate to the actual top of the transducer. So you have these little lock washers. According to our instructions, we have our little lock washers and these little, I think it's a 10mm, like a machine screw. So we're going to come across the top, and we'll get all these started in here, and then we'll go across and kind of torque these down a little bit. I can't imagine we'll need some huge clamping force, just because it's not really going to endure a whole lot of torque or pressure. So, alright, you make sure you want to torque these down when you're done starting them all, but pretty self-explanatory here. Alright, next step. Alright, next step, we're going to take our bolts here, washer on the exterior. It's going to line up our actual, this is the transom plate. Let me see, is it going to be easier to mount this before or after? We'll do this kind of like a loose fit here, because I'll have to adjust the height of this, and I want to make sure I'll be able to get in here to these slots to actually mount the screws. So washer, so we got a bolt washer on the exterior, we're going to do a washer on the interior, and then we're going to do one of these nuts here with the insert. Real easy stuff. Alright, so then we'll get the correct wrench and we'll tighten these down with a wrench and a socket. Alright, so we got our wrench here, socket. We'll tighten this up just kind of snug. Don't want to go too tight. Just kind of for a loose fitment. We'll tighten everything down after we get everything leveled underneath. I'll kind of show you guys how that needs to happen. Go a little bit tighter here. I want to be easy with the transducer too. Don't slam it down on the deck of your boat like I just did, because you don't want to damage your crystals. Alright, so next step, we'll go ahead and we'll mount our transducer, and then we will run our transducer cable. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to find a straight edge, and you're going to want to run that tight up underneath the bottom of the boat. So right about there, and you're going to want to slide your transducer along that straight edge, and that'll give you a rough estimate right in between those two slots there. Our center hole from the previous installation is going to line up perfectly, but those two bottom holes are going to have to be re-drilled to fit this wider pattern on this new transducer. But it's important that you find the bottom of your boat, and you actually want to have your transducer on the bottom of your boat, level with the bottom of your boat, and then that will give you play up and down to make adjustments to get it actually in the slipstream there. So we'll go ahead and remove this, set our transducer aside here, and we'll go ahead and drill these two holes. And we'll go a little bit low on this side because I think she marked us just a tad high. Alright, so there we go. We have our hole pattern. We'll go ahead and line everything up. One important thing to remember with a side imaging transducer, you're not going to want to level this to your bracket or to the bottom. I mean, as far as your left and right orientation goes, your roll. You're going to want to orient this level to the water level when your boat is actually afloat. So if I were to try to match this line here and tilt this transducer to match, you can see how that's kind of at an angle, and to some people that might be fine, but with your side imaging, you're going to have a beam on this side that's going to be coming out. This is a great example. You're going to have your beam's going to be coming out of your transducer like this. So you're going to be high on one side, the more you twist it, and you're going to be low on the other. So you're not going to get your side imaging off the left side of the boat it's not going to be anywhere near as far as what's off the right side of the boat. The right side of the boat, you might actually see the surface. So I'm going to try to make sure, for this initial run here, I'm going to kind of eyeball it because I know this isn't setting level on the trailer. I have no idea where my boat left and right level is. I do, however, know where I need to have my angle positioned, and I'll get to that here in a bit. So we're going to go ahead and run these screws through here and get this kind of eyeballed, and then I'll show you some important tidbits about where this needs to be as far as placement with the bottom edge of your boat here. Alright, so first things first, you're going to want to kind of align your transducer with the bottom of our boat here. So I've not got these screws tightened yet, so I still have a little bit of adjustment, and I don't have them tightened all the way yet. I still got a little bit of adjustment in our mount here. But what we're looking for is a straight edge, such as a level or a carpenter's square. Anything really would work. But you have to imagine this imaginary line off the back of your transom here. There's going to be a high, there's going to be a water coming through here at a very high speed. And it's almost going to be, you have to imagine it coming off the back of the boat as a plane. And right now, if you look at this straight edge, if our transducer was up here when the boat was on a plane, our transducer would be out of the water. So that's something you want to keep in mind. You want to take that into consideration, is that you want your straight edge, the water flow off the back of the boat. If you look here, if I actually put this straight edge directly underneath of this side imaging transducer here, there's a gap up here at the front of the boat, which is what you would want to see, meaning that the leading edge of my transducer while on a plane should, in theory, still be in the water. So this is how you get those readings at a high rate of speed. This is how you keep your transducer from dropping out when you come up on a plane and reading 0 or failing to read anything. One thing you want to take into consideration when you're mounting is if there's any stakes or rows of rivets. If there's anything in front of this transducer that as water passes over is going to create turbulence or air bubbles. Any air that comes along the bottom side of this surface while this vessel is moving is going to cause artifact in your display. It's going to cause erroneous readings. You're going to see a lot of turbulence on your sounder. You may actually not have any image at all. So straight edge, we're going to align our transducer to where the front edge is going to be in the water, and then we'll get into leveling here in a short bit. But the main concern right now is just making sure up and down that the leading edge of our transducer is going to be in the water when the boat is on a plane, which it will. So go ahead and tighten her down right there. Okay, so now one issue you might notice with 2D sonar, if you're not getting these perfect arches, if you're getting more of like a check mark or like a half arch or an inverted arch, sometimes your problem is your transducer's level front to back. So the actual angle that your transducer is off the back of the boat. One common mistake a lot of people make right out of the gate is they will level their boat on the trailer. See, we're relatively level somehow in the gravel in this driveway. Someone did a really good job, I guess. But so our boat on the trailer is pretty close to level, I would say. So now if we go back there and level our transducer on the back of the boat, we're good, right? Well, wrong. You're going to want to set up your transducer to get the best image at the rate of speed that you're commonly going to be marking or charting. In my instance, I went out, me and my girlfriend Terry, we were actually out on the river, and we did this little, not really an experiment, but this little test to find out where my boat sets at marking speed. So obviously, let's say or let's just pretend we're on the river here and we're in the boat. I got everything trimmed out and we're at, you know, our marking speed, 3 miles an hour, I think 3 to 4 miles an hour. So what happens? Well, the front of the boat lifts up out of the water and you have really no idea to what degree your boat is going to be deflected, at what angle, at what speed. So you kind of have to just go out and do this. So you get up on you get to your marking speed. Mine was 3.5 miles an hour, and you want to take a level, and you want to put a couple of coins in your pocket. I use nickels. In my instance, it was 3 nickels. So on the river, the front of the boat raised up, so my level was, you know, canted. So to compensate, I took 3 nickels and put under the back of the level and raised the level up to read level. So I knew while at my 3.5 miles an hour that it took 3 nickels under the back side of my level to read true and level at my marking speed. So what that tells us is that this right here is the angle at which my boat sets while at that marking speed. So what we have to do to truly level the transducer parallel to the bottom is we have to go to our front of our boat and raise the front of this boat up with our jack to right there to get our boat level, and then we'll go back and truly level our transducer. So I'm going to begin jacking the front of this boat up, and my sister's going to go back there and she's going to watch the level, and we'll kind of get an idea of what we're talking about here. Got the shot?
Yes.
Close?
No. Slow down. Stop for just a minute.
That close?
A little bit more. That's perfect.
Well, I'm glad that's perfect because that is our jack maxed out. So what we've replicated here is obviously my boat at just above idle speed, what would be my marking speed. So this is the position of my boat, the angle of my boat at that 3.5 miles an hour. I actually maxed out my jack. We just perfectly hit the level mark. If you need to, one thing you can do is put some blocks under your jack. Just make sure you're really careful. You don't want your boat rolling off of something and then landing on your jack stand. So we'll come on back to the back of the boat here. We'll look. So we have our level. So 3 nickels. Our boat was level. So we're going to come on back here on the bottom side of our transducer, and you can see that we have a little bit of a deflection. So I'm going to have to bring the back end of this transducer up just a smidgen to get us in true level there. So we'll go ahead and break her loose here. Put this under here. So that right there, we tighten that down, and in a perfect world, when my boat is in the water,
this transducer should be perfectly parallel with the bottom of whatever body of water I'm in. So that's the goal here, is for this to be parallel to the bottom of the river. All right, so now it's just a matter of running our transducer cable up through the boat here. On the Crestliner Retriever series, with this kind of open concept they got here, makes this a lot easier. I'm going to leave all my slack back here because I think I'm going to zip tie my extra and tuck it back in this piece of aluminum here. We're just going to run up alongside the throttle here. Everything's super open. That's one thing I like about it. It's all right there. If anything happens on the water, it's pretty evident what's going on. There is a piece of conduit up here. In my experience, it's not really worth the trouble trying to feed this knob all the way up through that conduit. It gets caught. So I'm just gonna zip tie it to the conduit, run it up underneath, run it out the top, and then we'll be ready to get power to this SOLIX unit. Alright, so we're getting close. I actually don't have a bit big enough to... The power connector fits through, but the actual transducer cable will not fit through this hole, so that's something I'll have to acquire a bigger bit to get through and to actually run the cable. So for right now, I'm just going to run it around the back side of the console. Not exactly how I want to do it, but given the circumstances, we're just going to... And there is an insert here that protects these cables. Actually, let me put the insert in there first. I removed it in hopes that I could get the actual transducer connector to fit through, but that wasn't the case. So we're going to run this down under the console here. We'll splice this into power. We'll get our mount marked out and drilled, and we'll be ready to rock some SOLIX. Alright, we'll go ahead and shove our shrink tubing, heat shrink, whatever, up there. We'll try to take a little bit less of a bite here on our positive and see if, hey, looky there, less is more. So we'll go ahead and hook up our positive here to our transducer plug. So make sure you got your heat shrink on there. I don't know how many times I have crimped cables together only to realize that my heat shrink was nowhere to be found. Okay. So crimp that. Crimp that. Make sure we got a decent connection. We'll pull our heat shrink tubing down over it. And then, after we get it clamped on, could probably use a heat gun for this, but I'm just going to use my trusty old F-22 Raptor Bic lighter here. Alright, so then we're going to work on the negative end. They're here. These are the worst crimpers. Known to mankind. get that one. A tiny little ground wire. Okay, I think it's secure. So we'll go ahead and I'll break the first rule of electrical work, and that's don't finalize your connections until you test everything. But I'm pretty confident that that made a pretty good connection. And then eventually I'll get some electrical tape and we'll seal those connections up. Recording? Alright, so what we did was we just took our mounting bracket here, laid it in a position that I thought would be decent for me to view. Removed it, we have our pattern, and then we're just going to take our drill and run us a few holes. Well, I gotta undo that one. I'm trying to race the sun here, and I'm losing. I gotta have a washer on the back side of that guy. Screw and the lengthy bit of our installation should be done. Alright, I think that does it. Now we'll get the head unit mounted on here. We'll hook her up. So we'll pop our head unit in there. And we will put our bolts, loosen this up a little bit, both sides, get a little bit of adjustment out of her, and tighten these down accordingly. And then we'll come around to the back here real quick. And we're going to take our sonar and temp plug. Alright guys, we'll run around to the front here and turn this thing on. Alright, so off comes the cover. I'm going to leave the plastic on for right now, but we'll go ahead and power on our SOLIX, baby. Like a kid in a candy store. It is cold out here. So we'll go ahead and hit our home button here. And here is our simulated side imaging on our SOLIX unit. All this is going to be simulated, obviously. But go to, we'll split it up here, look at a couple different screens. It's a beautiful thing, ain't it?
Tell us how you feel.
I am ecstatic. This is the nicest fish finder I have ever owned, so I'm excited to finally have a good boat. I'm really excited that we got all this stuff done with it here tonight. I'm glad we got this thing mounted. We've got a little bit of dressing up to do. We're gonna zip tie, do some cable management, zip tie these cables to the conduit, wrap up the excess back there, zip tie it all together, get the boat cleaned up, and get it ready to maybe go out on the water tomorrow. And maybe, I don't know if we're going to be targeting kiddies or what, but we're definitely going to be going fishing tomorrow. So you guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for checking out the new boat. This is what we'll be fishing in from now on, at least until Adam gets his new boat. So appreciate it. If you guys like this video, if anything was helpful, go ahead and leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Next time, guys.